Hey there, guys, and a big welcome back to the Blaze TV podcast. Ed Kimberley hosting, as I say always, as most often. And joining me is Stu Coles and new Coventry Blaze forward, first year pro, first year over here, Matthew Gleason. Matthew, welcome to the podcast and a big welcome to Coventry. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here.
So for a Minnesota boy, it's a bit of a stereotype, but hockey's generally speaking in the blood. It's generally in the veins. It's something that's kind of ingrained in you at a young age, and from just doing a little bit of background on you, that seems to be the case here as well. Was it two state titles back in Pee Wee? And how old were you when you won those? You must have been pretty young.
Yeah. So back I would have been 10 and 11. So growing up with all my buddies, winning those was awesome. And yeah, growing up in Minnesota, I actually had a backyard rink. As soon as I could walk, I had the skates on, kind of getting the crap beat out of me by my older brothers playing hockey all day long.
That's generally speaking the way. And my dad is the youngest. I mean, obviously, it translated more into football. But yeah, he I think he was the football more than he was participating. But I mean, hockey was clearly a path that went hand in hand with academics. I mean, you went to quite a prestigious school in Crete and Durham. Particularly the Durham part's been around since the 1800s, which is crazy. And it seems like sports was or is quite an important facet of that school. You look at the alumni. Ryan McDonough's a name that guys will know. From winning the Stanley Cup a few years ago. There's a bunch of Super Bowl winners, a bunch of NFL winners, a bunch of baseball Hall of Famers come out of there. So, am I right in saying that the hockey and sports in general was quite big at that school?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just the history, as you mentioned. I grew up watching all those people play and just wanted to be a part of that history when I got to the school and be part of the hockey program. You mentioned Ryan McDonough. They had a bunch of other guys too that played Division I hockey and professional. So yeah, I mean, it was just contributing to that history, and especially growing up watching all those guys, it's just like something you dream about doing, and I was fortunate enough to do so.
And you're also fortunate enough to be captain for 2 years, which must have been quite an honor. And what did you learn about yourself during that time? Because I think when you lead people, you kind of take who you are to a different level, don't you?
Yeah, and I was actually fortunate enough where my first year there, my brother was the captain. So just kind of getting to learn from him and just try to understand how people work and how to lead a group of guys that can be different at times. And then, yeah, those 2 years, I'll be honest, my first year was a little bit of learning too. Definitely wasn't my best in all situations, but that second year was really cool. I mean, at Cretan, I grew up playing with all those guys, so definitely had a better understanding of them all. And just that was some of the most fun hockey I've played in my life, playing with that group of guys. And playing with them and aside of them the whole time was awesome.
Yeah, and I don't think you can understate how intense and competitive that hockey is. I mean, if anyone out there hasn't heard of Warroad, for example, they should look that
Yeah.
up. So that must have been quite a hockey education as well as an academic one.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm very grateful for that whole experience and the memories and also just the learning moments that I had while I was there.
Talk about going to Colorado College because you committed pretty early, from what I can gather.
Yep.
Why did you choose to go over there?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Cretan, they had a great combination of academics and hockey. I mean, they had a lot of history there as well. And also from where I grew up, I had played with a bunch of guys that were already going to school there. So it was kind of just like going from St. Paul, Minnesota to Colorado Springs, but bringing St. Paul, Minnesota with me. So that was the biggest part, it was just the guys that I was surrounded by made the decision very easy, and just going there was definitely a little bit different, moving away from home for the first time. And Colorado's a lot different than Minnesota. It's more mountains than lakes, but it was a really cool experience. And again, a lot of learning went on, but also a lot of memories.
And you spent, because that year where you kind of moved up to Colorado, I guess your freshman year, you had a little detour to Chicago in the US League as well. Were you kind of expecting to, because a lot of guys do this, they spend a year playing in the USHL, kind of cutting their chops there.
Yeah.
How did that whole year develop?
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting, right? I mean, everyone around the world was dealing with COVID.
Hmm.
So that was a very interesting time. And went into Chicago, you were doing different quarantines and stuff. But the coolest thing about that year was just the skill that I was shown. I mean, if you look back at that Chicago Steel team, I think we got 8 or 9 guys that have played in the NHL, about 4 of them that are regulars, and just seeing those guys on a daily basis was unbelievable. Chicago, they ran a great program there. And yeah, like I said, the skill was off the charts. And then come Christmas time, it was just I was going to have more opportunity at Colorado College. Coaches reached out, said they could put me in better positions. And yeah, I just viewed it as an opportunity to step up to the next level and play the dream of playing college hockey. But overall, just the whole transition and experience, I got shown a lot about what it meant to be a hockey player.
Yeah, I mean, playing alongside guys, just for context, like Adam Fantilli, I mean,
Yeah.
that must have been a wild ride.
Yeah, my line at one point was Adam Fantilli and Jackson Blake. I mean, let alone those guys were 15 and 16, and I was a bit older. It was just the skill even back then was off the charts.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking actually, they would have been younger than you, so there was a bit of I suppose, a responsibility on yourself being the slightly older guy to show them the ropes as well. That dynamic must have been fun. But the other thing that was kind of crazy is, I mean, you'd moved up and got called up to be playing college hockey, but they won the Clark Cup that year as well, didn't they? So
Yeah.
that must have been kind of strange to, okay, I've got Clark Cup next to my name, but actually I left halfway through the year.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't expecting it necessarily, but it still shows up there. So I'll take it for sure.
So talk about the NCHC conference as well. I mean, Div 1's pretty crazy, and in the standard is great, and you get those conferences that are just so intense in terms of the hockey. What was playing in the NCHC like?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fast-paced, high-skilled league. I would say that it's extremely defensive and structured, but then it offers the opportunity for people to show their skill when it's presented to them. So I think that was the biggest thing adapting for me. You know, you're playing against grown men that can skate like the wind, but they're also playing a very strong strategy. And then you can't mess up in that league, you know, because if you mess up, it's going to end up in the back of the net because that's where other guys can show their skill. But I think the biggest thing, again, growing for me was just finding your game at that next level. I'm not going to lie, it took me a bit to find my game there, but overall, I would just say it was very fast paced. You learn how to play heavy, but you
Mm.
also learn where your game can be impactful in a game, where you can find different areas to be successful and overall contribute to the team.
Well, one of the things I love about the NCAA in terms of hockey, like its intensity, because it's such an intense like watch, from the outside. But I love that generally speaking, anybody can be anybody, and you get like scenarios where the independent schools can go in and play whoever, and those are matchups that you might not necessarily get to see. And I guess talk to us a little bit about 22-23 because you lost in the conference final, ultimately to St. Cloud. But you knocked off Denver on the way to that conference final, and they
Yeah.
were, I think, national champs the year before, number one ranked in the country, and then the year after, they won the national championship again.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, so we were at Colorado College. Denver was about an hour bus ride away. So they were by far our biggest rivals. My whole time here, or my whole time there, like you said, they were one of the best teams in the country. I think they won 2 national championships while I was at CC. And every game they seemed to just pound us. And we were coming into playoffs, one of the lower ranked teams. First round, we played Western Michigan, who actually just won their first national championship this year. But that year, they were ranked top 10. Went into their barn, beat them in a 3-game series, won the first 2, then went over to the XL Energy Center in St. Paul, right by my house, and played Denver. And we ended up beating them 1-0, and that was the only time in my time at Colorado College that we beat Denver. And I got to say, it was probably the best game to win, too.
I can't believe I didn't actually clock that was in your backyard as well. That must have been super special. Did you kind of pack it out with friends and family?
Yeah, I had a bunch of friends and family there. First time playing in St. Paul since I had left home for the first time, and that overall environment was really cool. I mean, again, we beat Denver, which made it that much more special. But then also just all the friends and family there to support me, and playing in St. Paul was the dream that I always had when I was a kid. So just to do that at the college level was really cool.
And like you mentioned, it was a 1-0 hockey game. I mean, 1-0 is not a scoreline you see in hockey all that much. That must have been
Yeah.
a super intense game. Like, what was the atmosphere on the bench like? It must have been like you guys must have been clawing at the walls.
Yeah, we were definitely a more defensive team, so that was definitely to our playing style. I mean, Denver, they fast skilled. They got guys going to the NHL every year, so they definitely got a little bit rattled at that because they're a little bit more run and gun, make plays. We just kind of said we're gonna park it in, play good defense, get pucks out, and score when we get the opportunities. And it was a long game for sure. There's no mistakes to be made. You got to play your role, and at the end of the day, when you win, it's just like, oh, it was all worth it.
Absolutely. The education side of being a collegiate athlete um, seems to be really important to you. I mean, if you look through like your personal resume, two-time distinguished scholar, two-time all academic team, you must be really proud of that looking back.
Yeah, and that's just a thing that I've been ingrained with since I was a kid. My dad always just said, do the hockey, but you still gotta be dialed in on the school side of things, and definitely take pride in it too. Going to the classroom. I mean, here in America, we're considered student athletes, even
Mm.
though majority of our time is definitely spent on the athlete side of things. But you got to take care of the student, and yeah, it was definitely something to be proud about, and definitely something that I spent my time on and cared about. And at the end of the day, just really happy that I'm done with it, but also proud of what I did.
For sure. It's actually quite interesting, and this isn't in my prep at all, but, like, over the last few years, you kinda keep in touch with what's going on in the politics of it. Like, there was something going on between the BCHL and the AJ a couple of years ago where it kinda
Yeah.
got a bit weird, and then towards the end of your time, how the NCAA interacts with the CHL changed, and, that must have been kind of a bit of a head scratcher watching that develop.
Yeah, and actually, so this next year will be the first year that CHL players are allowed to play in
Mm,
college hockey. But yeah, like the transfer portal that started. I mean, I did transfer once, but now it seems to be getting out of control a bit. But it's a crazy time in college hockey in America. I think over these next couple of years, you're going to see even more changes and see how the CHL going to college hockey changes everything and how successful those players are. So it's
mm.
definitely an interesting time to see how rules will be changed and also just how it will be impacted right now.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the trickle down kind of affects
Yeah.
the elite league because we were recruiting in U sports for quite a while, and you get a couple of guys coming out the NCAA fresh, guys coming out the NCAA later on in their career. Sure, they've gone and played wherever, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens now. You mentioned the transfer,
Yeah.
and you moved over to St. Thomas. I love it, the Tommies. And I think there's probably a really old time English joke there, how we were called the Tommies during the Second World War. But that's probably a conversation for another day. Why the move to St. Thomas?
Yeah, so actually St. Thomas was new to the Division 1 level. So
Mm,
when I first went into school, it wasn't an opportunity. And at my time at CC or Colorado College again, I was super grateful. Met some of my best buddies there, great memories, but it was time for a change for me, both academics and athletics. And my two parents actually went to St. Thomas. My older
mm.
brother went to St. Thomas. So it's right where I grew up. I always thought about going to school there if I wasn't going to pursue hockey. And the opportunity presented itself, and I just had to take it. Just coming back home, closer to home, playing for St. Thomas. I know it's a younger program, but being part of that history going forward just seemed like an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Yeah, and it's really important. I think no matter whether it's in college, in junior, in pro, when you play for a new team that are fresh out the box at a level, you've got a chance to shape it, don't you? Did that appeal to you?
Yeah, 100%. A newer program definitely has a culture that needs to be set in stone.
Mm,
You go to these other spots that have history, you've had guys to look up to for generations and generations. But here, I mean, they were 3 years into the whole program being started in the Division 1 level. So that definitely was something, and it's definitely something that was challenging at times, for us being a newer program and new personalities coming in from everywhere. But at the end of the day, I mean, all the guys on board, we had a great time, and we ended up being successful down the stretch. But that definitely didn't come for free. We definitely had to put some work in to get there.
I think that's a good allegory for life in general. And we were talking about the NCHC being a great conference. The CCHA has some big fish in that pond as well. I mean, Bemidji have got a great program. Bowling Green have got a great program. There are plenty of others as well. Bemidji's just down the road from you as well, isn't it? So that must have had an opportunity to play in front of friends and family again.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's definitely different hockey, but it's just it was a lot grindier, grinding hockey. I would say there was some games again where it was a lot lower scoring. They make you earn everything you have. It's a lot more defensive. Um, Yeah, I mean, Bemidji and Mankato, they were the interstate rivals that we had. So playing those teams was always awesome. And like you said, Bowling Green, I mean, those teams are playing heavy. They're playing hard. I'd say it's one of the harder conferences to go on and win in the road games. Each
Mm.
team's pretty good at home, but for the most part, yeah, it's just grinding it out. You got to play a 200-foot game, kind of similar to the NCHC, where find spots where your game can impact the outcome.
And I think you just mentioned it. Similarly to your time at Colorado, you got agonizingly close to a conference championship, losing out to Minnesota State. What was that run like?
Yeah, I mean, this year we actually started out really tough. I think going into the Christmas break, we were like 4-13. And that's when a lot of the time you're looking in the mirror because we were projected to be one of the top teams in the conference. And we were losing a lot of one-goal games. And it was a look in the mirror type of situation where everyone's just like, okay, what's going on? But then second half of the year, right as the new year started, we went on a run. I think we ended up losing only about 4 or 5 games the second half of the year. And then that pushed us on to have that push in playoffs and make it to the championship game. And we did fall short, but I mean, Mankato was a really good team, the team that we lost to. And we played a good game all the way down to the end. We played them tough going down to their rink, and I think it was a 4-2 final, but I think it's one of those games where you sit in the locker room and it's no regrets. Everyone gave it their all. Everyone bought in. And although we fell up short, hopefully for years to come, they'll be back in that situation, bringing the trophy home.
Yeah, that getting hot in the turn of the year is oddly familiar to Blaze fans, which is,
Yeah.
I'm sure, something, Matt, you'll learn about a little bit more as you spend time with us. I realize I've spoke to you for quite a while, so I'm going to pass over to Stu, and he can, I guess, bring us into the future, Stu.
Awesome.
A touch of a look back, and this is more sort of my own sort of professional curiosity, as it were. You've done your 4 years in the NCAA. Your eligibility is up. What was it? And so you've kind of got to move on. But you just sort of mentioned about sort of graduating and stuff. What's your major in while you were at college? What were you studying?
Yeah, I was studying general business management.
Oh, there's a lot of people. Is that a does seem to be quite a common thing for hockey players? Is there a natural tendency that the hockey players all sort of group together and you all do business management, or is it something that had piqued your interest before going?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Everyone has their niche and thing that they enjoy. But I will say the nice thing about my major is, I mean, I had teammates in all my classes. My roommate, actually, Liam Malmquist, he played in the AHL for Manitoba. Line mates with him all throughout. He's got the same major. We were going to every class together. That just makes the experience so much better.
Yeah, certainly having that level of familiarity on and off the ice certainly will help you. And those sorts of team bonding moments, regardless, sort of gets that familiarity.
Yeah.
But now you're sort of moving on and just taking the steps into professional ice hockey now. And instead of looking at North America, which is quite a common route for people coming out of college, maybe go, like you say, line mate of yours, former teammate, went into the AHL. You've not gone AHL or ECHL. You've headed over the pond and looked at Europe. So I guess the question is probably threefold: why Europe, why the UK, and why Coventry?
Yeah, I mean, to start out, I definitely was looking to play after this season just for a couple months in North America, just try to feel it out and try to learn how to be a professional. But injury prevented me from doing that. And then, yeah, looking forward to next year. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me was just the conversations. I always thought about going over to Europe. I knew in North America I'd have some opportunity, but I looked at it as in Europe I'd have a lot more opportunity being a smaller forward, and just also the playing style. I think it's going to be different than college, but also it's going to be fast. It's going to be making plays, which is something that I'm really looking forward to playing. And then just conversations with the coach and guys throughout the team is really what sold me on Coventry. I mean, everyone has just told me about how awesome it is, how much fun I'm going to have, and also just the playing style, how it's something that you can learn to adapt and also get good coaching along the way, where I'm not just coming there as a player, but I'll continue to develop. And it's a spot where I can be successful both on and off the ice.
And does it make a difference to you as a player if you're say looking at the Blaze of last year and realizing that there was a number of first year pros who've just come out of NCAA who were successful? Does that kind of sort of help you make that decision, as it were?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I spent a lot of time on elite prospects, just going down people's different paths. seeing where they played, seeing where they're successful, and then seeing how it translated to the EIHL. And I think that was the coolest spot about it. I mean, Coach Moore, he was a college guy for a bit. He was at Princeton. And just seeing how those guys were able to adapt and be successful was definitely a big part of it too, where it's, okay, I could see myself in those shoes going over there and enjoying myself on and off the ice and being productive for the Coventry Blaze.
It's good to hear that Elite Prospects is used by people other than Ed. So it's nice that it's getting a bit of a workout. How much have you sort of, I guess, through your research then, how much have you found out about the Elite League and sort of UK hockey in general?
Yeah, and I've actually had some people over here that I've grew up playing with, or they were coaching me, that I've been able to talk to. And yeah, it's just like the experience, they say, is top notch. I mean, that was another reason why I wanted to come over. Every person that I had talked to that had played in the IHL said that it was once in a lifetime opportunity and you can't pass it up. I actually mentioned Malmquist, his brother played at Nottingham for a bit, and he just said how much you're going to enjoy it and that it's something you can't pass up. And I think that was the biggest thing too, was just talking to those guys and learning also how to be a pro over there and what to expect, but also looking forward to it.
And you kind of touched upon it there. Hockey's quite when you get down to it, hockey's quite a small world.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody somewhere, right? Like you know,
Yeah.
friends and teammates who've been in the UK, so it's quite easy to make those connections.
Yeah, and I think that's the coolest thing about hockey, really. I mean, especially being from Minnesota, where it's considered the hockey state in America, you just build lifelong bonds and build a connection with people all over the country and now the world, which is really cool. And it's, you have your memories, you create friendships, and then also just like having those conversations about how to be better or how do I adapt. It makes the process a little bit easier, and it's just also something I'm very grateful for.
And you've also there mentioned having some chats and discussion with your soon-to-be new head coach in Kevin Moore. What have those interactions been like? How has he sort of got you hooked on coming to Coventry?
Yeah, I remember he the first time we talked, he just asked, "Where do you want to be better offensively?" And it kind of caught me off guard, and I was just like thinking about it, and I mentioned something, and he's like, "Yeah, I pulled up your statistics on this, your statistics on this. This is where I think you can get better." And just starting the conversation on that is just very appealing. You know, it's like, okay, yeah, don't tell me I'm good. Tell me where I can get better. Tell me where I can be productive in the league next year, how I can be productive for Coventry, and then also where I can grow next year. So I think that was the strongest thing for me, is he knew all my aspects of my game, offensively and defensively, and also saw areas that I can grow to be productive and be an impact on the game next year. So that's what stood out to me.
It's almost a little scary when you realize that Kevin possibly knows you better than you do.
Yes. I felt like I was quizzing myself, or it felt like my dad was talking to me about where I can be better. He already knew the answers.
But I think it's also, you touched upon something there. There's a lot around development and, that sort of personal development. Is that a huge draw that you're looking at this first year pro, wanting to get better, wanting to find a spot where you can put yourself in situations where you're going to grow as a person, as a player, and it just all seems to fit really well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with, you can't grow as a player if you don't grow as a person. I think that's the biggest thing too, is just being present where you are, which also Coach Moore talked about a lot too. But also just, it's definitely going to be a change for me, like as you mentioned, going across the pond for the first time, but also just taking everything in and experiencing it and growing as a person. And then also with that is just growing as a player. Like you said, the development and how Coach Moore knows my game better than I probably know it. And also he's just going to push me to get better in those areas I can improve and get better at the ones that I'm good at to be productive.
Hold that thought on the on what you get shocked about when you arrive in the UK, and those sorts of first ports. Well, I'm sure we'll catch up in the at the start of the new season, and we'll talk about some of the things that you found a little bit more surprising about the UK versus the US. But have you spoken to any of the other? I think you kind of mentioned a little bit. You've spoken to some of the other teammates that you're going to be with next year. They sort of reached out and sort of started those conversations as well.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of guys reached out after I signed. One guy I was talking to beforehand was Grayson, and just having a call with him too. He was awesome about it, and he kind of just laid everything out about what he enjoyed, how the adapting was for him. I mean, he was a first year pro there as well, and he just kept telling me, just like, dude, trust me, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. He was telling me just about kind of how the weeks went, and overall him changing and going there and changing from college hockey. So it was just talking to him was definitely a big step for me to sign with Coventry.
Well, I'm sure Grayson's agent's fees are in the post as we speak, for those convincing words. And so, talking a bit about your game, we've done our research as well, and on Elite Prospects, you're listed down as a centre, so obviously forward player. Could you talk a little bit about your game? What can the fans expect to see when you get on the ice?
Yeah, I think all aspects of my game just start with my compete level. I'm definitely a shorter forward, but don't play like it. I love going to the hard areas, love being in the corners, and then with that competing, it allows me to make plays. That's where it makes my skill come out, is getting to those spots and then being able to create space for myself to make plays, make passes, and then put the puck in the back of the net as well. So I think, yeah, the biggest thing is I play with a lot of emotion on my sleeve for sure. Probably a little bit too much at times, but definitely what makes me the player I am, and then just using that to make plays.
Emotion and hard work goes a long way in Coventry, that's for sure. Just one more thing from me before I finish. Have you got a message for the Blaze fans that you're coming over to in a couple of months?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just I'm so excited to be part of everything Coventry and the club, and can't wait to meet all the fans, and at the end of the day, score some goals, make some assists, and be ready to jump into the glass with everyone.
Matt, this has been a lot of fun. I think we're all itching to get the roster complete and get over here. And
Yeah.
it must be quite nice having got this done pretty early in the summer. You can kind of kick back, relax. You know where you're going to play next year. You don't have the anxiety of waiting on the agent to call. How are you going to spend the next couple of months before you hop on the plane over?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially being a first year pro, you never know if you're going to find a spot, and just getting it done makes you really focus on just the preparation of it all. I mean, definitely enjoy the time with my family and friends while I'm back home this summer, but it's just like, okay, we got everything figured out. Now it's time to train, hit the ice, hit the weights, and be ready to go come August.
Sounds good to me. Guys, thank you so much for joining us again on Blaze TV. It's been a blast. We'll see you for another episode real soon. Bye for now.